Rome, the show that came before Game of Thrones. And they say Rome wasn't built in a day. Neither was this show, I think. It originally came out in 2005 and finished in 2007. Let me define it like a video game. It was the alpha build to Game of Thrones, which was the beta build and the final release. Nowadays, I don't think many people know about this show. I watched it on binge. It is a HBO television show. I think at the time, back then, it was like a really big kind of event because it was Gladiator, but as a TV show. Crazy. But yeah, a lot of money was put into this show. There's a lot of extras. Visually, it's quite stunning. It also, fun little fact, has the biggest standing set of all time so far in the world. This may have been defeated, but I don't think so. They essentially just built Rome, which, you know, who doesn't do that on the weekend? But I wanted to talk about this show and let you guys know about it. And if you want some more like Game of Thrones, but were disappointed with the last couple of seasons, this show is definitely worth a watch. It is, like I said, HBO, so it feels like Game of Thrones, but with like history. I'm a little boy for history. That's what I am. I'm a little boy. What is Rome? Rome follows two soldiers named Lucius and Titus, and it follows their essential survival and their fights during the rise and fall of Gaius Julius Caesar. That's how they say it in the show. They do this weird hand stuff. I don't know why. And it also shows you, after the fall of Caesar, what happens with the Roman Republic and how it becomes essentially an empire through Caesar's nephew, Octavian, which we'll get into him a little bit later. Lucius is played by Kevin McKidd, who is most well known for Trainspotting. He was also in Brave, the Disney Pixar animation. He plays Lucius and he is great. He is so good. His character is very angry, but he kind of hides it, and he's also very like strict on his beliefs, and this is really reflected through how his character develops over time. There's also Titus, who's played by the late Ray Stevenson, rest in peace. He was recently in Ahsoka. He's also in a bunch of other really amazing productions like one of the Punisher films. He is fantastic. He is definitely one of the parts that carry this show. At first, him and Lucius hate each other and they have to work together to like essentially please Caesar. But then over time, Titus starts just like lounging on Lucius's like family, like their little gazebo that they have. And they slowly become friends. And their friendship is what carries the show. Throughout the series and throughout their journey, you encounter different historical figures like Mark Antony, Cleopatra, Marcus Brutus, who's one of the men who killed Julius Caesar, Cicero, who was one of the philosophical senators at the time, who I know that name. You know what I'm saying? You know Cicero. I don't know why you know Cicero, but you know the name. So yeah, like I said before, Lucius and Titus at first really do not like each other. They have to work together to find Julius Caesar's eagle that he carries around when he goes to war. And apparently in Caesar's journal, these two characters were mentioned. Real life characters, real life people that existed. But this friendship between them, and honestly, they become not just friends, they become brothers. Because you see the two of them at their lowest and at their highest. I would watch the show just for them two, genuinely. There's episode 11 of season 1, which is essentially the gladiator arena fight. And it is really well done. It's really bloody. The visuals still look great. For a show that came out in like 2005, 2006, it looks phenomenal. Like, I mean, it's up there with Game of Thrones. Something that you see in like season 2 is Lucius cries in front of a bunch of people because he's just down bad. But he like breaks down and cries because he's just lost everything. And I think back then, like a man crying was like big. Like men didn't cry back then. You know, they were men. They were manly. They were tough. They were powerful and stuff like that. I'm just a little boy that likes history. As I mentioned before, Julius Caesar's in this. He's played by Kieran Hines. I think he's most well known for, I think he was in Harry Potter. He was also in Justice League. He played Steppenwolf. I think it's Steppenwolf. It's not Stephen Wolf, that'd be a bit weird. Julius Caesar, like he's not an attractive guy. Like he's not like this kind of awesome Jon Snow. He's just kind of this manipulative person who is constantly playing chess with every single person he sees. And you can feel that through the performance. He's always thinking about how he's going to manipulate someone. His public image is like the most important thing to him. And when that gets defamed, oh boy, he like loses it, and you can really see the devil that's really inside of him. There's also his best friend, Mark Antony. Woohoo! He's played by James Purefoy, I believe is how you pronounce it. He literally is the show in season 2. Because in season 1, he is the secondary kind of character. behind Caesar, but season 2 he really blossoms and he is so good, especially towards the latter half of season 2 where he's kind of constantly losing, because he has like multiple different types of Mark Antony throughout season 2. There's him when he's losing against Octavian, then there's him losing when he's with Cleopatra and he's a bit of like a hippie. I'm surprised the guy who plays him doesn't act in other things, because I think this was his role, man. He was so good in it. Unfortunately, his like overall fall in Egypt does feel very rushed. It's like, okay, he's in Egypt now. Okay, he has children with Cleopatra. Next episode, it's all gone. It's like, whoa, that was really fast. There's also Atia, who's played by Polly Walker. She's most known for Bridgerton. She's incredible. I love her in this. She kind of carries you throughout Rome as this kind of rich, privileged woman. And then there's her daughter, played by Carrie Condon, who I mentioned in my Better Call Saul video. And those two are essentially Julius Caesar's cousin and niece. And they show you kind of the women's world and the rich world of Rome. Oh, yeah. One thing that they just really wanted to show in the first episode, especially with the two female leads, is nudity. Everyone is naked in this show except for Lucius and Caesar. Just a lot of Johnson and a lot of Jenny. I guess that was the time though. I guess historically that's sort of accurate. Another thing that it has in common with Game of Thrones is incest. Incest, baby, let's go. Yeah, that's a plot point in this. I'm going to talk about it in my next section. Game of Thrones similarities. This show does have a little bit of incest. It's not as bad as Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is like incest every day. But this show has incest that pushes the story and essentially is somewhat what leads to Julius Caesar getting stabbed by 12 men. I think there's actually more Johnson or Richard in this show than there is in Game of Thrones. There's also a few actors that are in both of them. Tobias Menzies. Indira Varma is in Game of Thrones. I think she's the Sand Queen. That's not her role, but I think she's the Sand Queen. Enzo Cilenti is another actor, and of course Julius Caesar himself was also in Game of Thrones. Truth be told, Game of Thrones is more visually stunning than this show. Like the battles are a lot more intense. I think visually they're kind of similar because I assume they use similar techniques. But without Rome, I don't think Game of Thrones would have been as epic and as massive and as like impactful as it was, because this show really was the test that ended up being Game of Thrones. In particular, season 1 doesn't show you many battles in Rome, but then season 2, it has this massive battle between Octavian and Mark Antony versus Brutus, and you see all these men come together and then fight. Like Braveheart. It's like boom, bang, sword, ninja star. I don't know why there's a ninja star. And like that battle feels like it came out of Game of Thrones. Like it's the perfect kind of thing that ended up being Game of Thrones. And then what Game of Thrones did was it did the crazy battles, but then kind of made them 100 times more insane and added dragons. The show's downfall, and just the downfall in general, the show does feel rushed. It's only 2 seasons long, and season 2, the first half is like really tight, and then all of a sudden, you're skipping like 10 years per episode. And it feels very weird because some of the characters don't age all that much. And it's like 5 years have gone by since these two characters have interacted and they look the exact same. The reason the show feels really rushed towards season 2 is because originally it was meant to be 5 seasons. And I assume it was like season 1's about Julius Caesar, and then season 2, 3, 4, and 5 is about the rise of Octavian as he establishes the Roman Empire, and it allows also the actor to like grow up and become like a man. But because the show was really expensive at the time, and like I said, there was a lot of extras, a lot of costumes, a lot of sets, they had to cancel it unfortunately in season 2. But season 2 and the writers did a really good job at like doing a nice conclusion of the 22 episodes that are out. That's another reason why you should watch the show. It's not that long. It's 22 episodes. You could watch like 3 a night, be finished in like 2 weeks. Another weird thing is Octavian, who founded the Roman Empire, he gets recast, not like in between seasons. Like it's okay if he's one actor in season 1 and then a different actor in season 2. He gets recast halfway through season 2, and the two actors don't look anything alike. They do have blonde hair and blue eyes, I guess, but the reason the younger version got recast was because he didn't look old enough to be adult Octavian, so they recast him with a different actor who I think does a fine job. Like both of the actors did a good job. However, like his interactions with other characters that he's meant to have a relationship with, particularly his sister and Titus, it just doesn't hit well. Like it just doesn't feel good. The writing's really good because you're meant to see him essentially kind of become evil. Cleopatra and Egypt are great. I know that they made that other Cleopatra docu-series, and that didn't go well. But this Cleopatra is pretty accurate, and I like how she's not a main thing. She's honestly a side part of the story, but she's executed really well. Egypt's done really well. The ending, it does its job. I feel like it is rushed, because like a lot of things happened in the last episode, and it's only like an hour. I think it would have been better if it was an hour and a half. But the thing about this show is that historically, not literally, but historically, it does take place before Gladiator. So, in essence, you could watch Rome and then Gladiator and then Gladiator 2. That's an idea because technically this show shows you the founding of the Roman Empire, which is then in Gladiator, which then has the Colosseum, and then Gladiator 2 follows that movie. So it's like a trilogy. That was my plan. I have no idea what I'm doing. Anyway, that's my video for Rome. I hope you watch this video and maybe watch the movie. Watch the TV show. I'm going to be outside fighting with swords, and hopefully I don't die. But yeah, thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Take care. Goodbye.